What is up, YouTube? It's CS back here with another installment, and here are my picks for what is now called UFC 130 Rampage versus Hamill. This is because of the fact that the initial main event in Edgar versus Maynard 3 had to be scrapped because both Frankie Edgar and Gray Maynard got injured in training. So I wish both of them a speedy recovery, and hopefully they can settle the lightweight debate in a card in the near future. But let's focus at the task of hand, of course, with Rampage and Hamill taking the main event. You had to make another co-main event, and that is between Frank Mir and Roy Nelson. And since all the fights basically had to move up, you had to move up one from the preliminary card to the main card. And the one they did is between welterweights Thiago Alves and Rick Story. So I'm glad those guys to get to have some exposure. But let's take a look at the first bout of the main card, and that is between middleweights George Santiago and Brian Stann. All right, guys, now here we go. George Santiago or Brian Stann. So you're basically picking what you think is more likely to happen in a George Santiago submission or a Brian Stann knockout. I like Brian Stann to knock George Santiago out more. That's just my opinion. I think that Brian Stann is a better technical striker, and I think that George Santiago doesn't exactly have much of a chin, so I think this does not bode well for him. Brian Stann's not exactly a collegiate wrestler or anything, and since George Santiago has world-class jiu-jitsu, and he's taken dudes down before, he should have no problem taking down Brian Stann, in my opinion, even though Brian Stann's probably training to negate such a situation. But before George Santiago even gets close enough to Brian Stann to do so, I think Brian Stann's going to clip him with a straight right or straight left and drop him early in round one and finish him off with punches. So I gotta go with Brian Stann to knock out George Santiago in round one via TKO punches. All right, folks. Now moving on, we got a welterweight bout between Thiago Alves and Rick Story. Now, who knows? What do you guys think is going to happen? I actually like Thiago Alves a lot in this bout. I think that Rick Story is taking a big step up in competition. I think that Rick Story is still a wrestler first, kind of mixed martial artist. That's cool. Stick to your guns. That's not a problem. But in order to initiate that kind of fighting style against someone like Thiago Alves, you're going to need some setting up to do. I'm not sure how well Rick Story sets up his takedowns, and I'm not sure if he's going to be able to do so, even if he does set his takedowns up really nice. Thiago Alves is obviously, you know, bracing himself for such a wrestler, and I think he's going to come prepared. Also, Rick Story isn't anything he hasn't seen before. He's been able to beat. He's been able to beat wrestlers who aren't John Fitch or GSP. So, I have to give Thiago Alves the upper hand here, keep this standing, and just out kickboxing, Rick Story, being the superior striker, cut Rick Story off, use good angles, nasty leg kicks, and hopefully take out some of the explosiveness that Rick Story possesses, and just turn this into a sparring match, kind of like how he did against John Howard. So I look for Thiago Alves to do that, is get the better of the striking exchange as well, maintaining his ground on the feet, and just winning a unanimous decision like so. But it would not surprise me if Rick Story won a UD via ground and pound for 3 rounds himself. Rick Story's a stud. Don't get me wrong, I think he's great, but I just don't think it's his time yet to beat, a bona fide top 5, top 10 in Thiago Alves. So I got to go with Thiago Alves to win via unanimous decision. All right, moving on, YouTube, we got a heavyweight match between Stefan Struve and Travis Browne. Now, I basically said that Stefan Struve is better at Travis Browne at everything in mixed martial arts, and I still stand by that. I think that he's a better grappler. I think he's a better technical kickboxer, and those are mainly their strengths. If Travis Browne possesses something over Stefan Struve, it's maybe his aggression and his strength, obviously. Those two things are great, strength and aggression, don't get me wrong, but when you don't put away your opponents with that and you don't have much of a gas tank, that's not good. Like we saw in the Czech Congo fight where he gassed and Chet Congo would have won that fight if he didn't get a point deducted for grabbing shorts, or was it defense? I can't remember. But, you know, Travis Browne still showed some moments of brilliance in the early rounds. So, what that tells me is that it wouldn't surprise me if he was winning the fight until he loses against Stefan Struve. So maybe Stefan Struve waits for Travis Browne to gas himself out and eventually, TKOs him or submits him. I can see that happening, but what I think is going to happen is Stefan Struve is actually going to step it up this time and be just as aggressive as Travis Browne might be, and beat Travis Browne with a punch, hurt him, stagger him, and eventually punch his way to a TKO after he drops Travis Browne. Yes, I think that might happen. So yeah, I'm gonna go with that and say that Stefan Struve wins via a late second round TKO via punches. Now, YouTube, moving on, we got the co-main event in Roy Nelson versus Frank Mir. A lot of people are picking Frank Mir. I don't know why. I've heard anything from Frank Mir to by decision, Frank Mir to knock out Roy Nelson or submit him. All don't make sense to me. Decision. He's only won 2 decisions ever. Last time he won a decision, it was half a decade ago against a guy who is a scrub. Knockout doesn't make sense because he only beats scrubs like Krokop or Nogueira, who were both zombies when Frank Mir fought him. And then submission doesn't make sense because he hasn't given me any reason to think that he's improved since his last grappling match against Roy Nelson, where Roy Nelson beat him. Last and only grappling match, sorry. So I'd have to say that Roy Nelson has the advantage grappling wise. So I don't think that Frank Mir will have much success against him there. Also, I don't think it's going to the ground. I think it's going to stay standing up, where Roy Nelson has an advantage due to the fact that, sure, Frank Mir is a better technical Muay Thai striker. Sure, but he doesn't exactly have great striking defense, and he doesn't have the greatest chin either. He gets hit, he turtles. Period. And I think that's what Roy Nelson is going to do to him, is hit him in the face, and then it's going to be all she wrote after Frank Mir falls, and Roy Nelson hits him a few times until the ref says, no, that's it. So I got to go with Roy Nelson via TKO round 1. Alrighty, YouTube. Well, moving on, we got the new main event for UFC 130 in Matt Hamill versus Quentin Rampage Jackson. I think this is a bad matchup for Matt Hamill. I said that in my earlier video, and I'm saying it again. Matt Hamill against someone who can sprawl and brawl. Matt Hamill will most likely lose because Matt Hamill doesn't exactly have the necessary stand-up skills to beat a technical striker like Rampage Jackson. That's it. Rampage's technical boxing and wrestling are good enough to negate any offense from Matt Hamill. Matt Hamill goes in for a takedown. I think gets stuffed. If he tries to stand and bang with Rampage, Rampage should beat him with a punch via sidestepping him and countering him. So what can I say? How does Matt Hamill win this fight? I cannot see Matt Hamill TKO Rampage, nor can I see him win over the course of 3 rounds. So I gotta go with Rampage via either decision or stoppage. I'm going to say stoppage, and it's because of the fact that Matt Hamill does not have good striking defense, and I'm not sure how great his chin is. I don't think it's the best, and I think he's going to get dropped. So I got to go with Quentin Rampage Jackson to drop him early round 1 and finish him off with more unanswered blows. So I got Rampage Jackson winning early round 1 via punches TKO over Matt Hamill. So YouTube, that about does for my UFC 130 Rampage versus Hamill picks. Of course, these were updated. So, what can I do? I had to make another video for this shit because Edgar and Maynard both got injured. I wish both of them a speedy recovery. Hopefully, like I said, we can see them settle lightweight debate sometime in the near future. Hopefully, as soon as possible when they're all healed up and shit. But yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed my preview for this card. Sure, without that main event, it's still not bad. What can I say? I'm still excited for it. I think all the main card fights are relatively, they're at least a good. You know what I'm saying? So definitely check the card out. I'm not sure if it's worth buying, but definitely head to a local bar or restaurant to check this one out, or PM me for a stream. So, yeah, that about does it. Again, hope you enjoyed my picks. And if you want to, please follow me on Facebook or Twitter, or subscribe to my channel if you like what you hear or see. So, that about does for me, guys. Thank you so much again, and take care.